hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I'm your host, Lasheena Williams, and I'm so excited to be back with you all and continue the conversation on year-end planning and fund development, y'all. So that's this month's topic as a whole, and that's what we're going to continue to talk about. If you missed last week, I talked a little bit about board retreats and looking into what that looks like for your organization. So make sure that you check those lives out. Can you all believe that we are weeks away from a new year? So this is just an exciting time, and I'm just excited to be here with you all and with our special guest. We have, let me bring her on up. Shameka Allen-Lane is back with us, you all. Hey, Shameka.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It is always a good time to when you are on. So I'm glad you are back with us. So before we dive into the topic of year-end planning and talk about what does that look like in the event and programming space, do you mind for those that are new to tuning into the live, just giving a little synopsis about Catalyst coaching, and you have to share the science part with the audience, if you don't mind just sharing a brief introduction.
Absolutely. So, I am the owner and founder of Catalyst Event Coaching, and we are a event-based, I'm going to call it training company, and essentially we provide services around event coaching, consulting, and management. So it covers a good bit, but we focus primarily on nonprofits and corporate based events. So when you think of things like training, seminars, conferences, a lot of those types of events is right in our wheelhouse. And I personally, before starting the company, had worked in events industry for over 15 years and dealt with honestly over 1,200 events even before coming to work for the company. So a lot of experience and basically just taking all of that information and some common denominators to essentially create what we do at Catalyst using our framework. And part of my background that Lashina mentioned is I have a science background. It was my first love. I discovered events while, pursuing that love. And so, how I approach events is a little bit different than some of the other event professionals that people may come in contact with, but very analytical in mind. So, I do call myself an event scientist at Catalyst. And so, there is most certainly a scientific approach of how we. Look at things, and it's small things like people don't realize it, but if you are, for instance, trying to have an event, you talked about board retreats last week. If you're trying to have something like a board retreat, maybe you're all trying to do an ideation type of event, or you're trying to produce and get things done at that event. There are event designs that you want to avoid, and event designs that help cultivate that environment, as well as even foods that you should or shouldn't have, because eating chips could be very distracting for some people and they are losing track of their thoughts. So it's simple things like that that we're taking in consideration as we assist people with planning or training them and their teams on how to execute these events.
I get so excited every time you talk about the science behind events. It just excites me.
Well, I
And
am
that
glad because some people are like science. I don't.
no, I love it because that just tell me the level of detail and that you go to, and that in developing a very strong framework that works within events. That's what I hear when I
Yeah,
hear that you use
I am
science
so
as
glad.
your
So thank you.
yes.
And that's what we
Yes.
feel.
Good, good. Okay, love it. I love it. So this month's topic is we're talking about a couple things throughout the group this month. So year-end planning, fund development, and we are weeks away from a new year. For some nonprofits, this is the end of your fiscal year as well. In addition to it being the end of the calendar year, I know we're just a few weeks away, but what are some tips that you have for nonprofits looking into the upcoming year when it comes to the event and programming space? What's some tips you have there?
Sure. Like you said, it's the end of the year. So even if your physical year is different, a lot of us still are planning for that whole year itself, unless for some reason I know a few nonprofits that try to go along with the school calendar year.
Mhm,
And so if you're unless you're doing something like that, but even still, it's a good time to refresh, even if you are going after that school calendar. So look
mhm,
at the upcoming year because a lot of the donors and companies that you might work with as partners as well as donors, they're a lot of times operating off of the regular calendar year. So with that, you want to go and look at everything, just give a quick little refresh. If you're doing things normal, you don't want to change a whole lot, just go back and
mhm,
refresh and look at those things. If you are making some changes, I like to say you want to reverse engineer it. Um,
mhm,
and so you want to look at those big things that you plan to do for the year, those big goals, looking at your strategic plan and seeing how you can go about making these things happen. As a planner, because I like to reverse engineer, I'm looking at that big goal and you want to go and say, how do we make sure we can arrive to those goals? That's just like trying to run a marathon. You don't just go out and run the marathon on that
mhm,
day of the
mhm,
of the race. You actually plan out, I'm going to do 3 miles this day, 5 miles that day, what that walk run interval is, and it's the same thing when it comes to these programs and events. So you just want to be mindful of those things, and if there are new things that you want to do, it's as simple as planning it. And I know it sounds cliche.
mhm.
I know it sounds cliche, but it's as simple as planning it. So what just came to mind is, let's mention like social media. If you know that you have certain programs and you have to get the word out about these programs, you want to put it out on social media as one of the ways that you're telling people about it. But these are things you can schedule, right?
Mhm,
You don't have to wait to do this. Like, I want this to go out on February 15th. You don't have to wait to February 15th to do this. You can come up with a plan at the end of January. You want to have all of this set up and scheduled and ready to
mhm,
go. So these are things that if you're planning them, you can also plan the time blocks that it takes to complete these tasks. And it's helpful for your team, your volunteers, because that's where that information is coming from. They want to know exactly what to do. So this is a helpful way to do it. So that's one of the tips I would say. And then something that I'm currently working on with one of my clients is something that we're doing newer with them. Is that I've been working with this client for a little while, and in my framework, we have evaluation
mhm,
as a part of the pillars. With the evaluation, we're looking at all the different factors about the event, what's great, what's not so great, and we're making changes based on that information. And this includes all stakeholders, by the way.
mhm,
This is not just for who we're serving, it's including our volunteers, our sponsors, everyone that's involved, right? And so, with that, we're trying to create a better environment for everyone. So, we've made adjustments every year, and that satisfaction and the impact goes up every year. So now we're like, there still comes a point where it's never going to be 100% perfect. So I want to say, from the event world to everybody, nothing ever is going to be 100% perfect. You have to have realistic goals. It's kind of like marketing, and even those
mhm,
impact numbers, like, it's hard to be 100% perfect. So you can come pretty close, but not
mhm,
the 100%. Like when you see 99.9,
mhm,
it's one of those things. And so what we've discovered with this particular program, which is event-based program, is that there are some elements that I had not been touching that's affecting what we do at the program when it's happening, and its impact
mhm,
afterwards, right?
mhm,
And so I worked with the client on, can we help you? is there a way to help you with this? I know this isn't something we don't normally play with, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been around enough to kind of see
Hmm.
what's happening here. Can we have a shot at working with you on improving this programmatically? And the answer ended up being yes. And so we're
Yay.
working with this client, and what that looks like is building out those processes. When they're bringing in their volunteers, there's so much to go with this particular program, and it's confusing to some of the people.
Mm-hmm.
They're given all the information, but they get there and they're like, this is a lot. So we have all of that information. We're writing SOPs and job aids for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so at this point, because we're working through all of it, and this is a great time to do that, because now we're looking at what changes need to be made, if any changes need to be made. So you can look at changing the budget. Should you need to change the budget, you're looking at any other areas that you might have to build into your plan. And so for us, what that could look like is sometimes we're looking for pictures to show what something's supposed to look like, or, different things like that. So we might
Mm-hmm.
have to have vendors or just even people on our team to make time to take these pictures and do different things where we can incorporate that in the plan that we're putting together. And so I think that's a part of what we all should be doing at this end of the year, getting organized, putting those things
Yeah.
together. How can we make our lives easier for
Mm-hmm.
next year?
I love it. I love it. Yep. This is a really good time to kind of look at the different aspects, especially when it comes to your programs and events. What can we do better? Hopefully, after the program or event, you already kind of debrief. So now it's kind of pulling that back out, and how are we going to implement this to make next year even greater? And I
Yeah,
love that you're working with your clients on doing just that. So awesome. Anything else that you feel that we need to cover, especially when it comes to yeah, planning for these upcoming events for the upcoming year, something to anything to keep in mind. And then I guess we can also talk about, like, as, and I know this is kind of a loaded question now because I'm adding on to it, but also, how far out do you recommend organizations planning for
sure.
events and
Okay.
programs?
So first I want to say this. You know what? I'm gonna answer your question because I think I lost my train of thought and getting
Sorry.
ready to answer your question. So it'll come back, I'm sure.
Okay.
But in terms of recommendation of planning, it is a loaded question.
I know. I know. I know. I
It
know. I'm
is a
sorry. I'm
loaded
sorry. I'm
question.
sorry.
Um, so as a sweet spot, I like to say 6 months. And
Got
that's
you.
just
Yep.
a blinded
Yeah.
general sweet spot.
Yeah.
But there are other scenarios that could suggest something that's shorter and even
Mhm.
something that's longer, of course. But as a sweet spot, I say 6 months just because there are a lot of factors to consider. You don't want to rush into things. To be honest, December in my business have been a slower time frame. Even
Mhm.
before I started my business, when I was working in my previous roles, it was a slower time frame. Like I said, I focus often on corporate events and nonprofits. And so maybe about to the second weekend of December, we would have holiday parties. If the December 15th falls in the middle of the week, you might have a few more after that, but
Mhm.
it doesn't go into that next weekend. And so then it dies down for about a week and then it's
Mhm.
completely quiet after the end. And so at that point, if you haven't chosen to take off the rest of the year, then we're like using that time to organize, right?
Mhm.
And so that's something I love to do. This year has not been that way. I have had a lot of clients and potential clients come to me about next year. We want to do
Awesome.
something within a month, within
Mm.
2 months. What can
Yeah.
we do? How can we do it? Here's the thing. And I just had a client to sign with me last week doing that
Mhm.
same thing.
Mhm.
And we're in a position that there are a lot of things that are now taken off the table
Mhm.
because we're a month out and we're in the holiday season where people are taking off. Their venue closes its doors on this Friday. So
Mm.
anything that we need to figure out needs to be done
Yep, yep, yep.
prior to that, because we don't have a whole lot of time when they're back in the office after that for the event to happen.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking about ordering. If there's things that you have to order and have shipped, we're playing with holiday time frames here, you
Mhm.
know. So there are a lot of things that are taken off the table. And I'm just using that as an example, but it happens at different points of the year
Mhm.
as well. And so if you have 6 months to gather your thoughts, hear from team members, because we all have our personal thoughts and it sounds great in our head. And we say it to someone else, and it's like,
Right.
that's not the greatest idea. Did you consider this?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that does happen a lot. And so 6 months give us a little bit of time to play with that, and you're not rushing your team to get
Mhm.
everything done, and you have a chance to get any vendors and other players into it, especially as a nonprofit when you're trying to potentially get things sponsored.
Mhm.
You need time to get that sponsorship. They need to know they have a process internally that they have to take through, especially if they're giving you a high amount, of
Mhm.
funds. There's a process that they have to go through. When it's a smaller amount of funds, an individual can process that a lot of times a little bit quicker on
Mhm.
maybe their corporate card or something like that. But when it passes a certain threshold, there's a process. They can't use their credit card. They have to now go through the accounting team
Mhm.
and cut a check and all the things. And that alone, sometimes, once they say yes, is over a month.
Yeah. That's true. You brought up a point that now I'm about to go on my tangent. So this is I'm glad that you said that because I've had several and I'm glad that you talked about the sponsorships and needing to allow them time to review and consider making a contribution to your event. And so what's happening, I've spoke to several organizations and some might be tuning in and think it's you, but it's probably not just you. So I spoke to several organizations around this time, getting ready for, let's say, toy drive events, or around Thanksgiving, getting ready for food drives and so forth, and seeking funds at that time. And I'm gonna ask you all to consider this, and why I am not favorable of that is because what ends up happening when you're in a rush because you waited, you didn't take Shameka's advice to at least plan 6 months in advance for your sponsors to start reaching out. What ends up happening is you end up asking for less. So let's say you'll go to a sponsor or a donor because you're in a pinch. Hey, can I get $100 to help towards buying a toy, 2 toys for a student? When you that sponsor has the ability to give more, so they give you the $100, and guess what? Next year you come in a bind. If you knock back on that sponsor door, do you think the chances of them considering at that time they're gonna feel like I just gave you $100? Yes, I have the ability to give you 10,000. You only asked for 100, but you coming back for more. You think I'm the bank?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Just something to consider, and you have to think even in your personal life. If your friend come to you, hey, can I borrow $100 from you? Okay, cool, whichever. And then they come back a couple months later, can I get 200 from you? So I'm really big on, like, if you're going to make these acts, especially during this holiday season, um try to make the acts for more. At the minimum, this is my plea. Try to make it more than just that event that you're hosting. So
Yes.
yeah, try to
Yes.
make it for some 2024
Yes.
stuff as
So
well.
I
Yeah.
would love to add to that, Lashana.
Yeah.
A couple of things about that. One is that 6 months window that I talked about, this allows you time to get your stuff together.
Hmm.
So I'm an events person, so I'm gonna use an event example. If you are a person that is considering going to a conference or some type of event and they don't have a whole lot of information about the event, just come. It's going to be great. I promise we're going to change your lives. They don't have their keynote speakers. They don't have an agenda. They don't have any of that. What is the likelihood of you blindly purchasing a ticket for that event, right? And so it's
Hmm.
the same thing with the sponsors. They want to know as much as they can as it relates to what they're doing. Now, it's different if you're bringing somebody on as a partner, but
Hmm.
you still have to have your ducks in a row so they understand what's the goal and objective of this program so that they can see if it's a good fit with them. Because if they're a partner, I do recommend bringing them in as early as possible so that they can imprint how they would like to be a partner and some things that they would like to see to give them the impact that they need to show as well. But outside of that, what Lasheena just mentioned as well is asking beyond maybe just for that one program. I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit as well. Um, and we find that if you just go for this one event and then you have to keep going back, it's like, wait a minute. Like you said, we just gave you money. But if they know these are all the programs that we're doing this year, they can look at that and see what falls in line with what they want to do as an organization and
Mhm.
what they're going to give their greatest impact to. So they may give one lump sum. They may say, we want to choose these particular programs, and this is what we want to be a part of. There's a variety of things, approaches that they could do with that.
Mhm.
But if you give them that opportunity, especially when they have a chance to put it in to their budgets, because that's the other thing, they have budgets. And
Mhm.
once they hit that budget max, they've hit it. They're not going to exceed, especially to give. They're not going to exceed
Yeah.
for that purpose. And there are organizations that they work with every year that they
Mhm.
automatically are considering when they build their budget. And so if you're coming to them, especially as a first time thing, you don't want to continue being in that same scenario. You want to come to them and say, I know this is our first year. This is the start of our relationship. It's like courting.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is what we want to do this year. Let's check it out. Let's see how this goes together. But next year, you need to already be talking to them right after that. Hey, we have some other things that we think will be great for us to
Mhm.
partner on. Can we have a little bit of your time so that we can talk about these things? But having that in a document that you can send over to them and have them starting to look at next year is a huge help. They can see what type of impact that they really want to give and make in your organization.
Yep, that's awesome. And with saying that, so I think I know what homework is. So let's say you're an organization and you haven't decided yet to work with nonprofit enthusiasts, shameless plug, to
Yet,
build your
yet.
fund to build your yet you had not yet to build your fund development cycle so that you're courting, developing these relationships, stewarding these relationships throughout the year, and you're in a bind and you're trying to fundraise and you're trying to fundraise quickly during over this holiday season. So your homework is to develop a way, look at how you can ask for more. So quickly kind of look at who's that donor that you're asking, what's their giving pattern, what connects with them when you're getting ready to outreach to them, and see if you can get them not only considering your upcoming, let's say it's your holiday party for whether it's the seniors or the youth. Not only you want them to consider that, but can you also either consider, here's something else, something I mentioned to one of the organizations, reoccurring giving, because some of them were going to reach out to their family and friends. Would you consider giving X amount based off of what you feel will work best for them on a monthly basis? Would you consider also our upcoming events, or making this a ongoing um relationship through donating X amount, like a higher number that goes into 2024 is the goal. Not just this one month, but
Yeah.
also can help support some of your goals for next year. So that's the minimal acts that I'm asking. And then the other acts is go ahead and schedule your consult. What you waiting on? We tell you all the time, it doesn't hurt to call so that we can just talk you through how we can support you in your fund development cycle and just overall building the capacity of your organization. So please, 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 that's the minimal acts. If you're like, hey, I'm in a bind, and I'm coming across a lot of organizations right now that's what they're in right now at the end of the year. They're hosting their holiday parties, they're hosting these certain events, and they're asking for less than what they have the opportunity to get from a donor. So we're kind of working through, okay, if you're gonna do it and you're gonna do it quickly, can you at least do this, please? So that's
Mm.
my ask to you all. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it quickly, you're gonna make an ask, you're gonna ask your family and friends, give to your donate. Can you just ask them to give monthly? Instead of
Yeah.
asking for that one time 25, do you mind giving $25 a month to help a child do XYZ, or just
And that's what I was
ask them
gonna
for it.
say,
Yeah.
Lashina. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Put that as a part of your
Yeah.
impact statement.
Yes.
Make them understand my nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
We do a lot around the school return.
Mhm.
And so that may be uniforms for students,
Yep.
that may be
Yep.
school supplies, it's different things like that. So take that amount and
Yep.
figure out how much that costs and let them know, that it's $40 to sponsor a uniform for a student in need.
Yep.
Would you be interested in donating $40 per month? It could be a reoccurring charge. This is how we can set it up. And you just want to make those things convenient. So I do love that. And I want to add some bonus because I feel
Yeah.
like people just came off of Giving Tuesday. So we
Oh,
have
yes.
lessons learned coming off of Giving Tuesday.
Yep.
And so with that, I like to also challenge that because we also have people wanting grants, right? You need to
Mhm.
show how you're helping yourself, how you're figuring things out other than just saying, give us this money. And so one of the ways that you can do that is maximizing any opportunity to make money, right? So that could be if you have a program, if there's an opportunity there for you to make money, it could be you got vendors and you're charging vendors for a booth. It may not be a huge amount of money, but still it's something that you can make from it and say, this is how much this event's cost. This is what we're able to raise during this event. This is the gap. This is where we need help. So being able to do those and verbalize it essentially
Mhm.
so that people can see what that difference is.
Love it. So y'all got y'all homework cut out. And you only got 2 weeks, or 2, 3 weeks to the end of the year.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shameka, for coming on. So we see, and we dropped this earlier in the chat box, we see that you have some events coming up in early 2024. So we did
Yes.
drop the link for your event, right? Did you want to talk about any of those?
Yeah, I can talk about them quickly.
Okay.
So we are doing monthly workshops that are available each month as our give back because we enjoy working with nonprofits. There's always going to be one per quarter that is a completely free workshop. So
Yay.
this upcoming quarter is going to be February, but look for that consistently. But all of these workshops are affordable. If they do have a fee associated with them each month, we will talk about something different. As a quick goal for January, we're talking about event budgeting 101. So it goes along a little bit with what we're talking about here today. So being
Mhm.
able to create those budgets and stay on a budget. February, as I mentioned, is our free workshop, and it's handled securing and managing your team. And that's essentially working with volunteers as well as whoever may be on your team, board members or staff or anything along those lines. In March, we have event evaluation beyond the survey. So those are the three
Mhm.
for the quarter. Coming up, we'll consistently add more, but that's the first quarter for us.
Love it. Awesome. Awesome. So that link you can find in the chat. We dropped that in there. So please check those out. Other than that, thank you so much, Shameka, for joining us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you haven't done so, don't forget to invite a friend. You know how we do it. Go up to the go up to the top, click invite a few friends to the group so that they can tune in on these conversations, y'all. So thank you all so much, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.